It has taken buff after buff after buff to drag this character from what may have been one of the worst DLC heroes ever launched in For Honor's history to what may be the closest thing that players can get to controlling one of the mini-bosses from the campaign. You can imagine my surprise then, from not having played this game since November or December time, and seeing all of my matchmaking lobbies full of Sohei where he used to be rare. I look online and see competitive scrims where Sohei is a pillar stone to his team, and lo and behold, he even earned himself an S tier slot on an incredibly knowledgeable player's Dominion tier list. You see, me omitting his name is what we call foreshadowing in the show business. But before we talk about where all of this comes from, I think it appropriate to go back. Not too far, since, Sohei is only like 2 years old, but still relatively far back enough where I can make it seem dramatic and stuff. The year is 2024. And Sohei just released as the biannual hero of the summer. He had some pretty monstrous shoes to fill in though. Do keep in mind, for about 2 years before his own release, For Honor had seen meta-defining release after meta-defining release. Pirate, who has been almost entirely uncontested as the top pick for teamfighting, brawls, and even saw herself as a top duelist following the buffs to Cavalier Dance, making it unreactable. Seriously, I don't know what they were thinking making a character that can recovery cancel into iframes off of almost anything. Bust hyper armor after her own hyper armored attacks, have insanely good repositioning, opening, and peeling tools all in one attack, a busted feet lineup. There's just too much in this hero's kit. Medjay might be considered relatively moderate or even dismal in the current climate of For Honor, but back on his release, this character had it all. He was the team fighter, the ganker, and throw on top of that a lot of extremely team-oriented feats. Seriously, if you loaded into a Dominion match at all levels of MMR, you were damn near guaranteed to find at least one Medjay in the lobby. The only thing he truly lacked was ones, which even in these days were considered reactable. But as a mostly team-oriented character, Medjay was possibly the best mate you could have by your side. Then, immediately succeeding him came Afira, once again a character who chiseled out a spot for themselves as a top tier in all game modes. Really good team fights, peels, extremely safe approach and repositioning tools, good mix-ups, feats that basically guaranteed lethal levels of damage in a gank, and overall, may have been one of the most versatile heroes in the game at that moment in time. Unlike Medjay as well, Afira would remain near this spot. Although not often finding herself in the S tier position, with some exceptions, she is still solid and often sees competitive play today. Ocelotl. Listen, I love this guy. Okay, I think his design is really cool, and although I am Mexican and even mixed race, hence my name, I am 100% verifiably not of Aztec descent, and I still think this guy is really cool just for his aura alone. But Ocelotl, on his launch, may have genuinely been one of the most brain-dead heroes of all time, and that is saying a lot considering a couple of heroes we'll be talking about next. Chaining on Whiff from his in-chain bash put him uncontestably among the best duelists in the game. This was just fundamentally a very stupid idea. And even beyond that, once that was removed, he has remained a high tier pick in all 3 main competitive game modes. And Varangian Guard, from her release to today, has similarly stayed at or near the top. She has ducked many patches avoiding nerfs, and sometimes she even took a hit or two, but this character is just inherently always going to be very strong with her incredible peels, safety, teamfights, ganks, feats, the list just goes on and on. So many characters play into her at a severe disadvantage, and the ones that actually have a winning matchup into her have other lackings that leave them out of the meta, or they're a pirate. I just spent a pretty good portion of this video talking about all of these heroes despite the fact that this has nothing to do with them, but that was entirely on purpose. I just want to emphasize to any of you who may not have been in the community at the time just what kind of expectations we had for heroes leading up to Year 8 Season 2. Was it a good thing we anticipated every new release to just instantly reach the top of the meta, either by introducing new mechanics or bypassing old ones? No, but at the same time, Ubisoft is a company that seems allergic to making good ideas and addicted to the idea of making bad ones. Like, seriously, we removed Sledge's SMG-11 despite him being extremely unproblematic, and instead of admitting we were wrong and walking back the change, we just gave him a 30-round automatic Glock a couple of years later. And also made him a lard ass. Tangent aside, what we got instead on Sohei's launch was a hero that relied entirely on a gimmick. You trade the damage that other heroes would normally get throughout the chain, and instead, with your chain finishers, which also do way below average damage, you get a resource in the Soul's mechanic, each unique finisher giving you 1 out of the 6 that you need in order to charge up his 7-4 strike. Now, I like to imagine myself as a very level-headed person when it comes to making rash generalizations, but immediately when I saw that he has finisher heavies that do 18 damage, I knew there was no saving him no matter how overpowered that one shot could be. In the modern day, the trade-off is extremely worth it, at least in Dominion. But Sohei's kit was actually a lot different back then, as the chain was changed in Year 9 Season 1. Hey look, this time it didn't take them a whole year to address a new DLC hero. Just 9 months. On release, Sohei's chain worked like this. Every attack you did, in order to be chained, must be of the same type. So light into light, or heavy into heavy. Though at any time you could either mix the two types, or simply continue the chain with a zone extender, which would essentially act as a neutral state between lights and heavies. From this zone, any light or heavy thrown would be a finisher, and you can continue ad infinitum so long as you continue the chain with the zone extender. Sohei's gameplay was extremely feast or famine. He didn't have hype armor openers, both heavy and zone, instead only having it on his chain extender. At any point in the mid chain, he only ever had 2 options, and compared to today, he had super low damage. Sohei's character has insane aura. It is literally off the charts. He is our Piccolo and his fists are definitely tough as hell. On my mama, no cap, no kizzy. But this big ass dude right here, he was basically just a mosquito that could occasionally give you malaria. That malaria, instantly killing you. Simply put, competent opponents know not to play into Sohei's strengths, but it was even easier to do so before. To continue farming souls, Sohei has to keep going through predictable zones, which are definitely very threatening in teamfights, but it is hard to isolate a target to get the souls you need, because more often than not, the hero you will be going up against will have a better chance in the 1v1 because of a fundamental problem in Sohei's kit. Even once you have an enemy alone, the risk reward is so insanely imbalanced in any finisher heavy interaction you may have. Making the read to go for a parry has the possibility of ending his offense, obviously, but all you will get in return is a measly heavy parry punish. Meanwhile, if you fail the read or reaction, Sohei gets half of the souls he needs. Simply letting the attack hit you isn't even that detrimental as well, as he will always need to reset his chain with a zone, and the damage you will get from that attack will be, at most, 20 unless he expended his tier 1. With Eye of the Demon, he certainly can make up for this by virtue of how busted it is, but all of this is ignoring the fact that the character you are playing against also has a moveset, and that moveset will almost likely be able to play into yours at a humongous advantage. This is even just a perfect scenario where your opponent has been isolated from a teamfight and is unable to reposition for one reason or another. Simply put, being able to kill quickly in the 1v1 is extremely important for a hero who wants to take duels in Dominion, as the entire nature of the game mode revolves around time being a key resource you must manage throughout the match. It's kind of weird to have a character who has a big weapon and even some moves with wide swinging hitboxes that actually wants to go for 1v1s in a team game mode. His gimmick was definitely the weakest part about him, as he was definitely far more nicher and harder to apply just by virtue of the resource gathering he must do within a fight, while much better teamfighters could just perform their roles without a chore to do. And so, like I stated before, Ubisoft sought to rectify this humongous flaw in the philosophy of his design, but they wanted to be extremely cautious in doing so. Remember, this guy has a potential 95 damage nuke on his back at all times, so you can't just make the means of resource gathering too strong, or else he is just a really good hero by base, and can sometimes even just kill a guy with one wrong read. One of the first most impactful changes he saw was one I already mentioned before, changing his comparatively archaic chain into the one we have today. So lights can chain into heavies without needing a zone in between, and the neutral zone was given hype armor so early that it could actually just trade with finishers and stuff guard break attempts on the same timing. This would eventually be brought down from 433 milliseconds to 500 milliseconds, like most other neutral hype armor moves have been in the modern day. This immediately brought him from what would have been, at most, mid-tier in Dominions, straight to a respectable A, but there was more to come for the Mad Monk. Namely, perhaps the biggest leap he had in viability was the one in the patch that launched at the beginning of the most current season, Year 10, Season 1. Just for reference, this is how big the segment dedicated to Sohei's changes looks like. I don't think I've ever seen this many for just one hero, except for that one time Druin got like 18 nerfs in one update. The really important footnotes is that damage numbers from neutral improved across the board. Some dodge, sprint, and bash riposte attacks gained hype armor, and 7-4 Strike got its damage nerf from 95 down to 72. And Soul Soother got a set healing number, that being 80, instead of just healing an uncapped amount of health. iBoy is certainly in shambles, but he's European, so his opinion doesn't really matter. Instead, this most recent update may have been the one thing to tip the scales, going from a decent A tier hero all the way to the top in S tier. Now, I don't actually have much merit in terms of actually declaring the sovereignty of my opinion, partly because I don't play this game very often, and also for the times I do, I am very bad at it. So instead, I thought it appropriate to ask for the opinion of an extremely decorated professional player who is undeniably one of the greatest of all time of For Honor's competitive scene, past and present. So the following will be an interview with the one, the only, Toad's Mind. Actually, due to budget cuts, I couldn't get Toad Mind. So instead, I just DM'd the North American legend, Blitz. Considering he put him in S tier with heroes like JJ and Nobushi, I was really curious to see what, in his opinion, made him deserving of this space dominated by heroes who have been there for a really long time. His answer was very in-depth, so I will just let him explain. Before, his damage was very bad, which meant that with tier 1, which is insanely busted, he at least had average damage when he put it on someone. This didn't close the gap because other characters had way more damage and a better base kit. What Sohei wanted to do in 4s was take 1v1s, because that was the only way he could realistically get souls. Which before, with tier 1, you had a pretty mediocre kit but average damage. Still not enough to compete into better duelists in 4s, or kill them quickly. But with the damage buff, he puts tier 1 on someone and now has insanely high damage, which means he's really good at pushing 1v1s. And combined with his tier 3, the damage becomes even better. Hey, look, I already said some of that stuff. That must mean that my opinion is infallible and always correct. His tier 2 isn't really super valuable early game because at the top level it can be hard to get souls. But whenever you get tier 4, you have tier 1 plus tier 3 plus tier 2 heal whenever you want, meaning you can pretty much do anything. Before, he also lacked in teamfights. His zone was a good move, and his only good move, meaning he was at least playable in 2v2s. But in larger teamfights he didn't have enough damage or options to outtrade the better teamfighting heroes. But not only did they give him more damage on neutral heavy, which means he can pre-peel with that, but they give him way more damage on forward dodge light, which is a really good move to peel from far away. And they also give him hyper armor on dodge forward heavy and side dodge heavy. Side dodge heavy used externally is really good because of said hyper armor. And they also give him a hyper armor follow up on his bash, meaning when he does want to pressure an external, it is very hard to peel him. In short, before he struggled in 1v1s because of low damage, which was fixed by higher damage. 16 damage on a bash and parries is actually above what most characters get. In teamfights, he was playable before, but was rather niche. This was fixed with the increase of damage specifically to dodge forward light and neutral heavies, and became even stronger with the addition of more hyper armor options. Now, we must remember that this is simply Blitz's opinion. He's a very informed player, but ranking things in the form of a tier list is obviously not an empirical way to judge viability, since a lot of people, even of the same skill level, will have different rankings. But what is instead a better metric, in my opinion, is simply presence. More specifically, just how common it is to see more Sohei in a more competitive environment. Let's take Blitz's own experience in a recent 2v2 tournament he partook in. All the matches posted on his YouTube channel, by the way, and I would definitely recommend watching his stuff if you are interested at seeing For Honor at its highest level of play, and even with a lot of insightful commentary. Both in scrims as well as in actual tournaments, we see a lot of powerful heroes. Pirate, Orochi, Jangjun, Griffin, and so Sohei's presence here obviously implies that he's truly deserving of being up there with the greatest. It's simply undeniable. There wouldn't be a reason for him to be picked if he wasn't. But that fact poses a question itself. A lot of S tier heroes are in this position because, quite frankly, they are just busted beyond belief, and probably shouldn't function the way they do. So, with Sohei's being at or near the level of these heroes, is there anything that is fundamentally unhealthy about his gameplay, like Pirate or Orochi's basically everything, or Nobushi's extremely high damage, or Juren's feats? Well, luckily for me, that part of the script writing has once again been basically completely covered by Blitz. So thanks again for that one, man. At the end of his message, he had left his opinion on Sohei's current state, declaring that they should have just given him higher damage and nerfed the numbers on the tier 1 and not given him more hyper armor options. Relatively simple and to the point, so I don't really feel I need to explain it that deeply. And this is something we must keep in mind, and that obviously Ubisoft already has when changing this character. We cannot let him have too much. We are already right now in some very shaky ground with Sohei, since the character is entirely about snowballing. He plays a lot of the game in a state that definitely has weaknesses, even after all the buffs, but once he gains all of his souls, he can almost always achieve whatever objective is most important to his team at the moment. Does he need to stall or 1v1? Well, he has high damage and can heal himself from the brink of death to near full. Does he need to join a teamfight or maybe contest mid lane? Not only does he have good hitboxes and good peels, but he also has what is, in my opinion, the best tier 1 in the game. Whatever is to happen next, and however we react, must be cautious, since Sohei is a character we have never seen before and likely never will see again in For Honor, playing a different game within the game that most other heroes simply don't. Now, I'm gonna go back into Hibernation. That's a joke, by the way. It just takes a really long time to make this stuff. Why does he become so small when that happens? Why does he do this? Like, how does this happen? How does this happen? Regardless, I will see you all sometime in the next 6 months. Have a blessed day, all.
moves.
That's a great
and he's
video.
held heavy
That's exactly what I want to see
that
more people
seems to
do.
be lunging across the entire map at times, make him into the team-fighting monster he is.
I want to see you get
These
naked, Garrison.
moves created ridiculous.